Yes, you're correct. This is the least amount of prep we put into starting a podcast, but we felt the energy, man. We're just going to go with it.
Just jumping straight on the train. No
Just
hold
jumping
back.
straight on the train.
Straight on
Exactly.
it, man.
How you doing, brother?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. Nice busy week. How about yourself?
Yeah. Same. Like some
Good,
interesting revelations and stuff over the course of the week.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
Just life stuff.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it. Yeah, man. Go on.
Same.
So yeah, I'm gonna get straight into the name. The name.
Man. Hungry Eyes Brown.
Hungry Eyes Brown. Right. So the inspiration for this name is because of all the plates we've got spinning right now, and just the conversation that we had midweek, and conversations with other people. I think it's made me feel like everywhere I'm looking, I'm just like, oh shit, there's opportunity there. Oh shit, there's something to be gleaned here. So the phrase "hungry eyes," I hope it doesn't come across like a weird, like why are your eyes so hungry? Like looking at somebody like you want to eat them. But
eyes are too big for the belly right now.
Yeah, too right, man. Too right. So that's the inspiration for the name is that a lot of different avenues, man. A lot of different avenues where we can split some attention and we can put some effort into. And I'm just looking forward to it. I'm happy. I hope people out there can say the same about things in their life, because it's a big period of growth and just fun, man. Just super fun. Yeah, man.
Beautiful,
riding this train. I don't know if you saw Nick Daniels' Instagram post. He put a really nice post out. I think it was last week. And he tagged me in it, and he was like, "Oh, having good people around you that kind of have good conversation and you can kind of vibe off of." And it was just a nice kind of gratifying post, and he tagged me in it. He was saying like kind of person like myself, and I quoted a guy in the comment section who Derek Woodsky, who I've been talking about a few times, and I think on the podcast I mentioned to yourself as well. And he's like an old school OG of PT, of strength and conditioning, of just being a bad man. And I quoted a quote of his saying that the train of success doesn't stop at the station. You just have to see it and grab it and jump on it. And there's no time to slow down for it. You have to just kind of keep rolling faster and faster and faster, and then do the work on the back end to make sure that you're ready to be present in the room. You know what I mean? You can't be kind of sleeping when that train's about to roll by. So that's kind of been the experience of this last week, where seeing all these opportunities pop up everywhere, and clients pop up as well, and just generally everything's moving at a very, very fast pace, which is great. But then realizing that I can't be burning the candle at all ends, and basically sometimes not showing up in the room and missing. Like for instance, this week I had a lecture with Nick Daniel, and I actually missed it because I overslept. And it was just one of those where I was just like, what the hell? Like that shouldn't be happening. But it was the only reason I overslept was because I've been up really, really late working and trying to get things done on other projects so that I can show up for that project. But then you do that and you end up kind of burning the candle at both ends and waking up in the morning and be like, oh, I've had shit sleeping. We've been talking about these Whoop bands that everyone's probably sick of us talking about, but they measure your sleep. That sponsorship's coming, G. That sponsorship
exactly. I need it, man. I'm giving them so much money already so far.
I know. Tell me about it. It's been measuring my sleep has just been crap all week, and you look at it, and sometimes it's like you motivates you obviously to do better with your sleep, but then when you think you do well, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the next day and you're just like, oh, it's still shit. My body is still kind of burnt out. But it just teaches you, right? It teaches you when you're doing well, teaches you when you're doing bad. It's just a case of just balancing all that shit out, man. So that's been my week in a summary.
Yeah, big time, man. That's a good point. In the more you take on, the more you have to do the recovery. Yeah, and like because we've talked about it before as well. That saying of that Zen saying, which is you should meditate an hour a day, but if you're too busy, you should meditate for 3 hours a day. And the point is like, it's brilliant, right? It's like because you just realize that the more you take on, and the more you do, the busier you get. You need to spend more time reconnecting with yourself and making sure you're getting that baseline level of recovery in, so that you're able to take on all these different challenges.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then I said to you, we had a chat midweek, and I said to you that I think it was Tuesday night, praying last like prayer of the day. And usually it's just kind of I'll pray off for like, we'll pray for like 10 minutes, and then I'll jump up and okay. See you later. Yeah. So usually I pray for 10-15 minutes and then get up and just crack on with getting into bed. But I remembered what you'd said, and I was like, I'm super busy, so I'm just going to put it into practice straight away. And it was weird because the first 10 minutes of prayer get you to a certain place, but then if you allot the next 10 minutes that same kind of practice, it's like you go deeper into the rabbit hole and you end up kind of finding more peace. It's like a next level of peace, and it's weird because you don't think it would work like that. You think, oh well, I have to get back to doing my other things, I have to be super busy. But really, by taking a bit more time to chill yourself out, like you said, the word you use, reconnect with yourself, which I think is the best way to put it, because you can connect with yourself so much in X amount of time, but if you spend a bit more time, you're just going to connect with yourself deeper, and you end up going about the next task with a bit more mindfulness and a bit more forethought in terms of, oh, I'm happy that I'm doing this as well, and then the task doesn't weigh so heavy on you. So it affects the whole process.
Yeah, you're refueling. You're refueling yourself, right? In a different way. Like you're getting that kind of like this spiritual refueling, but it's that it replenishes your soul. It replenishes more of you, so you can give more to all these opportunities that you've taken on.
Too right, man. Too right. It's a great way of summarizing it, and it worked. It totally worked. And where in the week, I've not done it, and I have done it, and not done it, and have done it. I've definitely realized that the going slow now to go fast later on is another way of putting it, but it's so legit, man. It's so legit. So yeah, anybody out there who's struggling with keeping all the plates spinning and kind of keeping your head above water, definitely stop and do that, because it's almost like like we discussed, I think it was the last podcast or the podcast before, taking a breath in the moment where you're getting a bit heated, and just taking a step back to look at yourself and watch yourself. It just gives you that time. You're literally just giving your body that time to just stop and just change the pace.
Yeah, man. It's like it's changed the pace. It's one of those things you can't really take a break from as well. That's definitely something that I've learned, which is because you can get to. It's very much basically like physical training. I find that if I start thinking about things in that through the paradigm of physical training, then it's like, what do you need to do to get the results you're looking for physical training? Is like, well, I need to put myself under a little bit of eustress, so good kind of stress, and keep adapting. And the way I make those adaptations is through consistent change, and then I just set a new baseline. And it's the same thing with this kind of work, where you've taken you take on all these different opportunities, you throw yourself out there in all these different kinds of ways, and it's easier for you to burn out. So you need to still spend that consistent effort to keep raising your baseline so you don't burn out, and structuring it so that you're getting it in as well, and making sure that you're able to do that. I've got like loads of thoughts like spinning on that kind of thing as well.
1,000,000%, man. 1,000,000%. That's do you know what, you've sparked a thought in my head, which is I've got to shout out Jordan Shallow, because I've listened to a webinar of his this week where he's talking about programming, and it was a really interesting thought, right? What you've said definitely ties in. And he's like, apparently there's a show in the US called Chopped. I've not seen it. I don't know if it's on the food net. It's a cooking show, right? So basically, the premise is that you get a bag of flour, some butter, and like a few ingredients, and they tell you to make something. And he gave the analogy of like somebody coming to the desk with, or coming to the countertop with like a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of Jack Daniels and say, "I'm making you a cheesecake." It's like, how the fuck's that gonna happen? Like, it's just not gonna work, right? And the way you've just put it is like, you've got to do the work to keep those ingredients good. So it's like if you do the work on the back end, as in your meditation and your connection with your brain, you're almost like going out into the garden and cultivating your vegetables and your fruits and your strawberries and your all the things all the ingredients that you need to make up a good life. You're doing the work on the back end, and then you're going forward with that work, and you're putting it into the world, and you're kind of moving with a lot more clarity, a lot more thought, and the things you're doing it's bedding in a lot better. Whereas if you're just constantly redlining, and you're going to the table with a bottle of Red Bull, and you're just like, I want to have a 3-course meal. It's like, how's this gonna happen? No,
Yeah.
we're not gonna get that 3-course meal. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
go home, plant some seeds, water that seed,
Yeah.
sit there while the seed germinates, and just that's the process, right? That's the process
Yeah.
of doing all this stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's the connection it made in my head, man.
Yeah, that's nice. There's yeah, definitely. There's, I think I've heard like Zen sayings and stuff as well, which are like, just about watering that plant, or like sowing that, like properly, like laying that seed in the soil, doing everything that you said. And that's just, yeah, just a metaphor for cultivating any kind of beneficial practice into a lifestyle habit, which also means that you live your life better. And again, it raises the baselines, right? And like what you basically talking about as well, with regards to just spending a bit longer during prayer. And that could be like anything as well. It could literally be like, that's one of the great things about prayer, is kind of, it's like, it's akin to a gratitude practice, right? So it's like, it's just I like, one of the things you do is just like, you give thanks, right? And so again, it just like, now it ties back into the science of it as well, which is the neurosciences of it. Is like, the research is showing that that kind of thing is imperative to raising your levels of happiness and raising your levels of contentment with your like current surroundings. Even if things ain't going so well, there's always something to be grateful for. And then what that does is nourishes your ability to strive forward to the things that you want to do. So it makes you more aware of that train that's coming by, which ain't stopping, and it gives you the juice to be able to catch that train while it doesn't stop at that station. That's just that success train. So there's loads of reasons for it, for it to be something that's a part of somebody's life. And then on top of that, it's also this goes back to that physical training analogy as well. It's not something that just happens. It's something that you've got to make happen. And then the more you make it happen, the stronger that muscle becomes. Basically, the stronger that your body becomes, the stronger your mind becomes in this instance. And what I was saying about it being something that you just can't really have any days off from, because you can feel strong, right? So now what we again, like studies show that if you don't do any kind of muscular like strength training, it takes about 3 weeks before you start to lose those gains. So first thing is for people who think they have to be training to make sure that they don't lose their gains. Like if you take a day off, it's like you're going to lose your gains. Like, no, that's not how it works, right? But the second thing is like, if you decide that if you fall off the wagon, then those gains, you start to go in reverse, and you're going to have to do some work to get yourself back up to a level that you just built yourself up to, right? And it's the same thing with that kind of practice. It's the same thing with that kind of mindset practice, because I've noticed it as well, where I'll have like some good days where I've like done really well. I've been productive, which has also fed into my state of mind. And I'm like, oh, cool, this is great. And then I've fallen off the mindset practice, whereas you just kind of take it for granted. Basically, you're like, oh no, I'm good now. I'm good. And then like several days later, I'm a bit more in a haze. I'm a bit more fuzzy. I'm not thinking as clearly as I would do. I'm not as productive as I would like to be, and then I'm a little bit more agitated. So I've lost a good, healthy mind to be taking on challenges from. And it's like, why does that happen? And I think about it, I'm like, oh, you fucking dickhead. It's because you just go out of the routine. You lost your consistency. It's like, what happens if you lose your consistency with physical training? You fall back. What happens if you lose your consistency with your mindset practice, with staying on top of your recovery? You fall back. You don't feel as good. So it's the same. Like, there is not really any days off from it. You can get better at it so that you could spend less time on it. But there's really no days off from it, because as soon as you start doing that, you start to trip yourself up a bit.
Makes total sense, man. Makes total sense. I remember getting told once when I was in year year 8 or year 9, I think year 8, by a teacher called Mr. Fox. Shout out Mr. Fox if you listen to this. You're the man. He was
Mr. Fox.
Yeah. he was our PE teacher when we were in secondary school, and we were talking about this atrophy from training, having made gains. And I don't know whether he was citing something that was in a book or it was just the research at the time, but it was like, I think he said it was like 4 days of training and then 1 day off, and you lose the gains or something. Or maybe he said something different. My mind just heard that you can train 4 days in a row, you take that day off, and it's like you've lost all that progress. So what I heard was no days off. I just like straight to the gym. I'll be at the gym constantly. Legit, that stuck in my head like it was. This is science. Like this is science.
Yeah,
I can't be taking days off. That was the way I took that. But to be honest, it helped me. Right? Helped me be like overly literal. Just be like, yep, that's it. But you're totally right, man. You're totally right. It's. And just like that little microcosm of me listening to your advice and going from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, all of a sudden, like that extra 10 minutes on the end, it totally changed my perspective. And like, who's to say that 10, 20 minutes the next day or the next day or the next day won't get me deeper and deeper and deeper? Like I could be on the edge of, like, you know, that you've seen that picture where the guy's digging and he stops digging and the gold is just here.
Oh yeah.
And then the other guy keeps digging and like the gold's further away, but there's still gold there, right? So it's like I could be right on the precipice of something massive, but because I didn't put the extra time in to do it, I won't ever know about it. You know what I mean? Like that's super sad. But you got to kind of put yourself in the room, and then, like you said, you put yourself in the room consistently, and then when that train starts like hauling ass by, oh shit, it's time to run. Like let's get after it. Yeah, man. Yeah, I completely see that. And everything you can kind of link this back to. I'm sure people listening will say they would do the same thing and say the same thing. Shit that you put the effort into consistently always works out. It always works out. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's work, whether it's studies, anything, training, like you said. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And if it doesn't work out in that moment, your wantingness to do it will bring you in line with people who help you work it out. That's a firm belief that I'll have, is like kind of you're just somebody who's about it, and your being about it will definitely put you in the room with other people who are also about it, and you'll like me and you, like kind of this only came about because you were about it. I was like kind of shilly-shallying around it, and then it's like, oh yeah, let's just do it, and here we are.
Here we are, man. It's so true. It just helps you level up. You put it out there. It's like the funny thing is, the universe has a bit of a way of making shit work out for you. It's like you just have to kind of ask for it and start moving towards that thing, and then before you know it, those people start to show up around you. And it's I know I've experienced that for sure. It's like you just kind of level up in your mode of thinking or in what you want out of life, and then when that starts to happen, you start to meet the kind of people who are about that life as well. And it makes a big difference. Kind of like us as well, is like for example, doing jiu-jitsu, right? And like a big reason I do it is to help me level up as a human being, because there's a lot of things that it shows me about myself, which are really hard to come to terms with, to be like, oh man, that's something that needs working on, and realizing things that I didn't even know were there, right? And that's the thing, because it's such a visceral thing. It's grappling. It's like your failures are right there, like straight away. Somebody's choking you out, like it's because you failed to defend yourself, basically, right? it's right there in front of your face, and so it's done some amazing things for that. But I met you through doing jiu-jitsu, right? So I've met my housemates, my flatmates, through doing jiu-jitsu, and I can't tell you how happy I am to be living with these two people as well, because just my life experience is so much better off as a result of that, and it just eventually just kind of came together where we ended up living together as well. So and you just do the kind of things that help you level up, and you meet the kind of people that help you level up at the same time.
Too right, man. Too right. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting how it works. But I think you at a certain point, like I was talking to my client earlier in the week about having what was she saying? She was saying that imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Like imposter syndrome, yeah. And the way she was describing it was like she almost felt like she wasn't quite that person. Like, yeah, that's imposter syndrome, right? Where you feel like you're not quite the person who should be giving advice or kind of being in that room. But inherently, I think it's at some level, unless you know that your intentions are completely impure, and you're not somebody who really does have somebody's best intentions at heart, or like all the intentions to, if you're just consistently going to fake something, then yeah, you should have that imposter syndrome. But if you're somebody who just feels like your level compared to somebody else's level is maybe a little bit less, it's totally fine. Like you can't be the fact that you're pushing yourself to be there in the first place, that's the thing you should focus on. You know what I mean? In that kind of environment. And as a result of kind of meeting people in jiu-jitsu and whatever, there'll be techniques and there'll be situations in life that I just won't do as well as you will, and vice versa. That's the thing that people should kind of focus on, rather than focusing on the feeling of, should I even be doing this, or am I even worthy of doing this, or am I kind of faking this? I don't think that's really a necessary, a needed thought to have. I think it's more just to focus on the fact that it's a process, it's a journey, and put yourself in the room first, and then just leave the other things that kind of doubt and things that pull you back. You've almost got to just block those voices out. And I think, tying it back to what you were saying earlier about meditating on the fact that you're doing these things and slowing your mind down to be like, yeah, the intention is pure. I'm doing these things. They're working out for me. They're working out for people around me. I'm happy about it. That would just help to dispel all the doubt and just keep you in the room and be like, I'm focused. I'm happy. I'm here. And the more the opportunity opens up to you, the more you're ready to just take a hold of it and keep going with it.
Yeah. It's the funny thing, the interesting thing about imposter syndrome is actually it's more likely to affect people who do give a shit. And it's like, because you care about, so it happens a lot in coaching industry. It's like you care a lot about the outcome of the person, and it's your job to help them through that outcome. So you constantly, if you care about what you do, there's a potential that you constantly just feel like you're not good enough to be helping this person through this problem. And because you just kind of look around, you're like, oh man, there's so many people around who, have been in the game for longer than me. Why is this person trusting me with it? It's like, I can say it from experience, because it happens often where I just kind of go through that imposter syndrome, where you're just like, where I'm just like, here's a challenge, it's pushing me to the edge of my capacity to help this person. And I'm like, am I good enough to be able to help this person and see it through? And it's, and it can be pretty, confidence shattering. It can be soul destroying if you let it be. But for whatever reason, even while suffering from that on the occasion, I've still pushed through it, because I'm just determined to learn how to do better. And so if you're somebody who's like, you like the kind of person you described at the beginning, which is you don't really have the person's best interest at heart. You're just interested in lying to them about your level of capacity or whatever it might be. So you won't necessarily suffer from imposter syndrome, because you'll just have that like false sense of confidence about yourself.
Right?
Entitlement, false sense of confidence. Whereas the other person who's a little bit more grounded might have that about them. But then it's also, there's again, from personal experience, the thing I've started doing more is understanding my capacity, like understanding the traits and the skills that I have and the ones that I want to develop. And then that lessens the imposter syndrome a lot, because you start to become more in tune with what your own capacity is on a realistic level. So it's not just like, again, jiu-jitsu is another prime example where you can't really get away with that kind of thing, where you just like, you think you're the shit, and then you just get smashed by somebody who in theory is not as good as you. So you're a blue belt, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a blue belt now, look at me go. And then a good white belt comes along and just keeps battering you, and you're like, you realize that your level isn't quite as good as it could be, and it harshly tells you that, right? So if you're going to keep believing that, then you're not going to be excelling. You're just going to avoid those challenges which show you that you're not as good as you are. Whereas if you flip it and you're like, you know what, this is what I currently understand about my level. This is where I feel like I need to improve. So then, you know, I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. So if a good white belt comes along and causes me trouble, I'm going to be less upset about it because I understand where my gaps are, and that person's game might fit beautifully into the gaps that I have, so that they're able to exploit that. And so then it's like, okay, I'm less pissed off about it, and then I suffer less from that imposter syndrome, because it's not like, oh my god, I'm a blue belt and I just got owned by a white belt and that should never happen, and maybe I'm not good enough for this. It's like, no, actually, I understand where my limitations are, and I'm trying to deal with that and move on from that.
Totally agree, man. Totally, it's a great perspective, great way of looking at things. And like you said, jits brings that to the forefront super quick.
Big time.
You got to face it, otherwise it's just like you're out the door. Yeah, man. So interesting. So interesting. How many years have your flatmates been doing jiu-jitsu? Did both of them do it, or just one of them? I know,
both of them do it. Yeah.
Oh, both of them do it. Sweet, man.
Yeah,
Sweet.
yeah.
And yeah, where did they start, and how long have they been doing it? And where are they with their belt systems?
Yeah, so we all trained at the same place. We were all at GB Oval back in the day. So I started January 2016. Matt started, I think, the summer of 2015. And Gumesh, she started, I think, in 2017.
Oh, nice.
Not entirely sure, but me and her are blue belts, and Matt's a purple belt.
Nice.
And yeah.
I think I met Matt once. He came to Wave, huh?
Yeah. I think so. I think you might have even rolled with him. I'm not sure.
I can't remember his face. I can obviously remember his face, but I can't remember if it was him or somebody else that I'm thinking of. But yeah, man, that's sick. Sick to have more than the same house, man.
Yeah, exactly. We call it Jit's house.
Do you roll? Do you roll at home?
And we ain't got the space for it at home.
Oh man,
which is a bit of a shame. But at where I was working, the gym, the vault, they had a room they had some like mats laid out. It was like old and grimy, but you could still roll, right?
Nice,
you could still make it happen. So like a couple of times a week, while it was still there, pre-COVID, or rather pre-lockdown.
Yeah.
It was we would get together and we would just like drill, or we would go through some concepts or have some rolls as well. And it was sick because it was just because at that point it's like my place of work and everybody's pretty laid back. So as long as we're not getting in the way of clients getting their sessions done, then it's all good. And so there were times where we were just like literally like 2.5 hours later, we're like, whoa. It's 2.5 hours later. We just lost all that time. Well, not lost. It was a freaking time machine, because we just hit a state of flow with what we were talking about, like what we're trying to understand, the concepts we were going through, and so it was wicked. So it's good. Yeah, great. Matt's great to learn with.
That's fun, man. That's super fun. Yeah, I can't wait to have that in. Just having that kind of thing super close, like in a work environment. I think that would be such a balanced workplace. Like you see these movies, like have you seen the movie what's it called? The Google movie is it called The Internship?
Yeah, with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn.
There you go. Well, they have like the I don't know what you would call it, but like a recreational place where they just chill out afterwards, and they have all these like, adult style games, and like it just looks super removed from like head down and work. Having that duality at your workplace, I think, is just so needed. It's almost like playtime. You know, when you go to school and you have like finish a certain 2 lessons, and you have break time, 2 lessons, you have lunchtime, 2 lessons, you go home. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of that. I think we definitely have a blessed way of living, man. Just the PT life. The PT life is a fun life, man. Definitely.
Yeah. Especially when you start making it work for yourself as well, because it's it can be conducive to like getting all that kind of stuff done, right? It's like I like early days. It was just you just need to get business. So you'll do it at whatever hour that is. It's like, you want to trade it? Yeah, you want to trade at 3 a.m.? That's cool. Let's do it.
I once traded a client. I think I traded a client once at 4 a.m. 4 or 4:30 a.m.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was consistent for a while as well. It was name. I'm sure it was Damesh. His name. Nice guy. He introduced me to my accountant right now, so appreciate it. Early doors is totally right, man. Totally right. You end up just kind of just doing it because you need the money, and then you're like, you need the client also. You know, you need the client to help polish the craft and to try and problem solve on the job. And that's the role of a PT, right? You wear so many hats, and you have to in the actual session, you're there trying to spot them, and you're trying to appropriately train them through an exercise, and then you're trying to relay information and take back information. But you need that medium where somebody's actually receptive toward it to go through it. It's interesting, man.
Yeah, man.
Super interesting. Super interesting.
Do you remember what it was like when you signed up your very first client?
Yeah. I think her name was Christina. Christina in Streatham Ice and Leisure was my first client, and she was a beast, man. She was a proper beast. It was that immediate, like, oh shit, you want to train with me? And
Bro, that's exactly my reaction. Those words, that's exactly what went through my mind the first time I signed up a client as well.
It was brilliant. Then you just like spend the next 2 days just going in on every bit of information you have, just like throwing everything at them in no coherent order. It's like fucking someone's just lifted the gate, and you're just bolting in any direction, just all over the place. Man. Yeah, man. No, it was exactly that.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like when the gates open and you're that greyhound who just chases the friggin' rabbit. You're like a gate's been open, but you're that bull that's being ridden, and you're just trying to get this information off you, you know? And you're just throwing yourself around, and it's like, I'm not making any sense. I'm gonna have somebody.
This is brilliant. That's brilliant. Remember that Buckaroo game?
Yes.
They just every so often just kick. That's it, man. That's the one. That's so funny.
Exactly, man. I know that feeling. I think any trainer who's started out and knows that feeling for sure. It's amazing. It's like you got this person's best intentions at heart, and you're super shocked that they want to actually take on your services. You're like, what about me has just convinced them that I'm a good idea?
Well, do you know what? I bet it's literally as simple as you were in the right place at the right time sometimes. Obviously, you have to. There are prerequisites to like looking a certain way and speaking with a certain level of, just a certain level, and then just being in the room when they show up in the room and you're there also. It's like, oh, personal trainer. I've been thinking about maybe. You're like, oh well, I am one of those people. Like, should we? And you're like, yeah, okay. And then that's it. You don't know anything past that point. All of a sudden, you forget everything. And, just like, I forgot how to do my job. It's crazy.
Exactly. That's where imposter syndrome is at its height. That first client, you're like, well, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll see what happens.
Well, in a way, you don't, right? Because in theory, you've studied and you've gone through the exam, but really, the actual physical reps of having a human being in front of you, putting their life in your hands, you don't have that.
Yeah.
In theory, you want to build a model and a life around that, and this kind of ties into a really good friend of mine, Simon Dutton. He still works for a company I used to work for, and he put a post up on Instagram talking about how if you're a newly qualified personal trainer and the first thing you do is go on a marketing course, it's like, that can work because it will work because it's going to get you more money. It's going to kind of help you build your business framework. But really, if I had to give advice to myself back in the day, I would go on a communication course, and I would go on a body language course, and I would go on I'd definitely continue training in terms of training modalities and diet and all this, and forgetting that side of things. I wouldn't necessarily focus on my pricing strategies and my packages and my kind of this, that, and the other. I would actually focus on my interaction with human beings and make that the ace in the hole, because that's what we do. Like, we do that so much. And I'm like, my sister jokes about this all the time with me. She's like, when I was younger, I just didn't. Though I went through periods where I just didn't speak to people. I was just such a recluse, and all I wanted to do was just train and eat and sleep and train and eat and sleep and just leave me alone. Like that was my life. But then I went and got a job, which was like, I am 24/7 in someone's face and talking to somebody. Like, I literally forced myself to do it, and here we are today. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird way of going about things, but yeah, that's what I'd say is to feel comfortable when you've got somebody in front of you. You need to practice that bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally. It's yeah. I wonder what kind of things. Yeah, what's the crucial first thing? I think that for sure is like learning how to interact with people, because that's first and foremost is what you're dealing with as a person.
Because you see it, right? You see it like the seasoned trainer on the gym floor. He's usually not the guy who's there with his stopwatch and like counting reps and just being the archetypal like strength and conditioning coach that you would see in kind of US style YouTube videos or whatever. He's not usually that guy. He's usually somebody who's just or I'm saying a guy, it could be a female as well. He's usually just somebody who's walking the floor, talking to everybody, having a really nice attitude, like kind of just generally being okay with being in the room with other people. And if that's something that you aren't okay with, or if your body language is such that you're just giving off these signs that, oh, I don't quite want to be here, and it's oh, shall I, like, we've all seen that PT. I've been that PT where there's one person on the treadmill and the whole gym is quite quiet, and like I'm going to go and approach that person, and if I feel a certain way about it, that energy is like all over me as I walk up. It's like I've got to be totally cool with like, yeah, I'm coming to help you out with your gym experience. Like that's total. That's the intention that I have walking up to you, not oh, I'm going to try and take your money, or I'm going to try and like fleece you for this, or I'm going to try and just joke you out of 10 sessions or whatever. That's the all those preconceived notions go through your head, and you're just like, oh, start putting yourself in this other box when it doesn't need to be about any of that, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think where because I did the same thing. I started off in a commercial gym space as well, and the clients that I picked up were the ones who I built relationships with as I'd gone along in that space. And just making sure that I was helping people out with like no strings attached. Basically, it's like, look, if you need help, I'm the kind of guy who's going to help you out with that. And then also, like especially when I started, I went on a tear and like really like got myself up into the upper tier of number of sessions delivered.
Nice.
Within a relatively short space of time, because I was so keen to just get started, but also luckily I got help from one of the more established trainers there about how to do a decent consultation as well, and which tied in nicely with the kind of person that I am, which is I'm going to find out what your problem is and really help you understand the solution, right? And so that requires a lot of listening, and it requires a lot of understanding the person who's in front of you. And because you're doing that, it's like, oh, okay, this person really understands what I'm talking about, where I'm coming from, and therefore sounds like the right kind of person to help me out. And so that's so it's built on what you talk about, which is good communication and just the ability to relate to a human being. And that's what helps you not just get started, but helps you deliver as well as possible. And then also, retain clients in the long term as well, because they know that you can help them out, and know that you'll always listen. And because you listen, you can see them through their transitions as well, because you've got to be able to tell when somebody's like not just plateauing, but kind of getting bored of what they're doing or what their routine is. So it's just like constantly being like, we've like, where are you at right now? It's been a few months. What's changed about what you're trying to achieve? In a nutshell. But that's it's the key. It's that interpersonal skill is the key that you want to develop for sure, and that's always it's always developing.
Yeah. And then just that about kind of being in the room and being aware of the fact that that's the game. The game is kind of approaching. Once you have it, it's like you're monitoring constantly, and that's a really interesting part of like PT that I really enjoy, and part of PT that I've really liked about doing video PT like for the last couple of months is that because you're sometimes you have a busy gym and you've got people walking around and you've got music and you've got things that distract you. Your clients there doing repetitions, and you will. I pride myself on being somebody who's always in the set. I'll never kind of miss a rep, or I'll never want to miss a rep. But sometimes you do, and sometimes you have kind of absent moments because something will catch your eye. Whereas like if all you've got to do is look at that the whole time, it's like you can't miss anything. You know what I mean? That's what I've really enjoyed that about PTing over Zoom or over any of the other platforms, because you're supposed to be there for that one thing. And I think if your client's at home as well, they're not got any distractions, so it's super focused.
Yeah. It's have you had that where has your client ever said to you, like, how do you keep count of everything that we're doing? Because I had that instance last week when my clients, it just cracked me up because it kind of caught me by surprise, but I realized what's going on is she's doing the exercise, but she'd asked me a question. And so I started giving her the answer to the question. And then I was like, oh, by the way, you got 2 more left. And she was like, how do you know? I was like, she's like, you're not counting, you're talking. How do you know this? I was like, so I started cracking up. I was like, yeah, that's a good question, actually. And like a lot of it just comes down to, you've done it long enough where you pick up on all these other different cues. So it's like, okay, I know you've got 12 reps to do, but I haven't got 12. I didn't get to 10 in my head. What I realized was it's the tempo you're doing the exercise at. It's the rate of breathing. You can pick up on all these other things. And so in the back of my mind, I was like, I still registered how like the tempo of the exercise and how hard she was breathing, what her breath cycle was like. So I could still, on some subconscious level, I was still keeping count. And she was like, yeah, it was right as well. I was like, this is like superhuman skill of just, it doesn't matter
really
what.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. Like, I was like, I don't get it right all the time. I know I don't, because like there's other things, I'm focusing on the quality of the rep or the quality of the set, for example. And then I'm coaching through the movement. And then they'll be like, I think you got 2 left. They're like, no, it's more like 3, or it's like, no, it's 1 more or something. Like, okay, fine, let's just do that. But then more often than not, I'm still on the right number. I'm like, I don't know how this happened.
That's it. I've got to confess, clients of mine watching right now, I'm shit at counting. And if you've got 3 left, I'll always think you have 4 left. And if you've got 5, it will always be 6. Like I don't know what I do with my counting sometimes. I think I'm so focused on the quality of the rep and like just the details. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's definitely not a good thing, because you need to just kind of like get the volume done rather than working through an extra 3 sets and you're just like, oh shit, sorry, this is my bad. Yeah, that's definitely a skill I need to work on.
Mate, the best example of that for me was doing split squats with a client back in the day, and we're going to do like 8 on each leg, right? But it was it was an alternating lunge. So he was doing it, but he's hauling ass, man. He was just busting out his ass. He was just turning red. He was breathing hard and everything like that. So so at one point, I just said, I think he's like, you got like, you're halfway there or something. He's like, halfway? Fuck you. Just straight out. With like the most venomous fuck you ever. And I was like, whoa. I was like, how many do you think we have left? He's like, damn, man, it's like 3. It's not halfway. I'm like, no, trust me. I haven't screwed up that badly. Okay, it's just really hard. You got to keep going.
That's amazing. That is amazing. He's at that level right now.
Yeah,
I've got nothing for you apart from this.
Exactly.
Fuck you.
It was so intense. It was so hard. He's breathing heavy. His muscles are burning, and he just swore. Like it was just swore so hard at me. And it blew me by surprise because it was so intense. But I laughed so hard.
That is amazing. I can't think I've ever got that level. I'm sure clients have thought it. This guy is just shit at counting. Fuck this guy. But I've not had that yet. Where clients swore at me. That is brilliant.
It's like, I was like, look, it's okay. I know you're gonna hate me once in a while. It's totally fine. It's like when we're doing this job, it's like you got to accept a little bit of hate.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a parenting role in some ways, isn't it? It's like a parent can't be your friend. They can't just tell you what you want to hear all the time. Otherwise, it just it goes bad. It goes bad really quickly. 100%. But then you can't be super harsh, and you got to get away with shit as well. But it's interesting, man. Super interesting. If you had to pivot off of PT now, knowing what you know, where would you pivot and go to as a career?
God damn, that's a good question. Ooh, what kind of? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'll tell you something though. Like the things which I didn't think I was interested in as a kid, or as interested as I would have liked to have been. I'm definitely more interested in all that stuff now. So say for example, so like say all like subjects and stuff that you do at school, like GCSEs, especially A levels and stuff. Like, I mean, I made the choice to do the A levels that I did because of what I thought at the time was just, the good subjects to do to get into university and stuff. I never had a passion until I found out that I wanted to become a personal trainer, basically, until I realized that. So when I did my A levels, I did physics, maths, chemistry, and economics. And the only one that I really liked doing was economics for whatever reason. But the thing is, like the passion wasn't there for any of these. So, I mean, I ended up doing economics at uni because I was like, I feel like I'm good enough to be able to do that. And I was like, that's something I could do. I kind of like it. I reckon it'll be okay. But yeah, with the others, they really fell by the wayside. I was just like, screwed up my A levels. I just didn't do well at all. And I never really applied myself. And it was just like, I'm smart enough to get by instead of I need to work hard to get by. It's like fixed mindset stuff, like a lot of the stuff we talk about. There's a lot of interesting stuff there to go into, but essentially never really had an interest in that kind of thing. But as an adult now, I realize how interesting these subjects really truly are, and like I'm so curious about physics, about like I've got more of a curiosity about good economics compared to what I even had at university, and curious about like chemistry, biology, evolutionary psychology, all the things basically that really it takes to understand like human behavior and excelling as a human being with regards to movement as well. But the other stuff is like, the wonderment with the state of the universe and things like, I would probably pay more attention in history because, you start to realize as an adult that knowing where you came from or knowing something about the history of the world puts you in a better place to understand where it might be going, or just gives you more of an appreciation for things. There's just so much about all that kind of stuff. And so I have more of an interest and more of a curiosity now in all these kinds of subjects, which I feel like are helping shape me into, by understanding them or trying to learn about them in my own kind of haphazard way, like, finding the odd piece of interesting information. It's definitely helping shape me as a better human being and like broadening my horizons and allowing me to get better at the work I do. So I don't know if I had that passion in the beginning or like that level of interest in the beginning and more of a growth mindset as well as a youngster. I wonder if that would have taken me on a different path. But go on.
And what do you think would have, like, in what capacity should you have been exposed to these things to make you then have that want, you know what I mean? Or do you think it's kind of a time thing? Do you think it's a maturity thing? What do you think to that? Do you think it was like how the subject was presented to you? Do you think? Go on.
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I think there's a lot behind it. I definitely think like on the like first thing is first, like the more you mature, the more appreciation you can have for things which you didn't when you were younger. But having said that, I think there's a lot about the kind of mindset that was nurtured as a kid, which meant that all those things never really became something that I were never really something that I cared about so much. So again, it comes back to like the fixed mindset kind of thing, and also having put in my head that it's okay to pursue something that I really like to do and want to do, as opposed to what I feel like I should be doing. If I had that, then I would have done things entirely differently as a kid for sure. And I would have had a different level of appreciation, interest for different subjects. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot to do with the kind of mindset that ended up being cultivated as a youngster, which has impacted ability to learn, the interest in all the different things, and then where that could have led.
And like it's really interesting to hear this, but do you think that at that age you're very you're not as formed as your own person yet? So because you're not as formed as your own person, you don't see yourself down the line being and doing things that you enjoy. So it's almost a bit of a like find out, kind of have the appreciation of you as a human being first, and have the appreciation of like you can change things, you can change this industry, or you can go into this industry, you can kind of work in this industry, and you can kind of, having done that, you can then affect people all over the world, like you as a 18-year-old or 17-year-old, 16-year-old, whatever. To have that level of awareness, I feel like would have given me more of a purchase in the class to be like, okay, I'm asking these questions for a reason. I have a purpose. I have a purpose for being here. You know what I mean? I have a purpose for going to this class, because if I understand this, then I can go and apply it. Like the same way that we now have a purpose. Like you will study somebody and you'll be like, I'm going to go and apply this straight away with my client. I have like the route to market straight away. Whereas at that age, it's almost like you have all this information, but you don't necessarily know where it's going to go, where you're going to go with it, what kind of train you're riding, or where it's actually going. And then you end up it just kind of turns into you not stopping to question because you're too busy doing. And that's kind of where I think I found myself at that time, which was just like constantly inundated with like studies. And then if you're not really present in the moment in the class, you just think, oh shit, well, I should be kind of knowing this. I don't really know this. And then you're in with the friends and whatever, but you have exams and you're just like, well, why are we being tested on this? Like we're not really that invested in this well, you are to a certain extent, but you're not. It's just not a fully understood thing. You know what I mean? Whether that's just a personal experience of mine. Do you think you resonate with that on any level?
Yeah, completely, man. I think I don't think that's necessarily a personal experience, because interestingly, like I've spoken about it with my housemate Matt about growing up in the kind of schooling system that we have. Sam, my bro, he's got a lot of thoughts on this kind of thing. He's
get that guy on the podcast, man.
We need
get
it. We need
on the podcast.
100%. He's got some very good, very great insights, and it will rile him up to talk about it, because it pisses him off. It's true. It should piss us off about the kind of education that I
can hear him now. I can hear him in my head, just being like, man, this is fucking shit.
Yeah, exactly. I feel strong about this, man. It pisses me off. And like, it's good. Yeah, you need to, because you just understand like where the shortcomings were. And actually, they're easily fixable shortcomings. It's not like we found out something profound over the last 15 years, which education isn't aware of.
We're not even that far removed from who we were when we were kids. Like we're just a little bit more actualized in certain areas, and you're just like, oh shit, all this like interest is right here. It's like it's in this fucking room. Like you've just been hanging out here the whole time.
Yeah. Exactly, man. It's like, I mean, to that point as well, but like, as teenagers, actually, like the parts of your brain that are involved in like, critical thinking and problem solving and stuff like that, like they need a little bit more development, but it's not that different to adults. So like, there's that interesting question of, if you put a teenager in the same position as adult to think through a problem, it's like, there's not actually much difference between the two of them. The biggest difference is like teenagers don't have the ability to control impulse. So that's why you don't necessarily want them to be in charge of decision making. But as adults, you get better at controlling impulses. But in terms of thinking ability, it's not that different. And so, which is a fascinating thing to find out, because that change, then it means that as a youngster, you can take what you think more seriously, right? So it's not just like you're getting treated like a freaking child, even when you're 15, 16, 17, 18. And that's one thing like my housemate Matt had a big problem with, which is like, you enter secondary school, even like there's no difference between how they treat you when you're 11 and when you're 18, when you're at the back end of secondary school. And it's like, yeah, actually, it's fair. It's like they give you that thing of like, you want to be treated like an adult, be like an adult, but then that's also treating you like a child, like by setting you up with that kind of frame. And yeah, I mean,
so interesting, man.
Yeah, it's like there's, it's for sure. Like go back to what you said. Is the quality of teaching is certainly, I think, a lot of the things that you need to excel are not drummed in. So let's take the idea of like doing all these subjects, like what you said, which is you're picking up all these different things, but you're not taught to like sit back and think, where's it going to take you? I can liken that to when I started doing jiu-jitsu and not being proactive about my approach to learning it. I was like, I'm just going to show up to class and whatever the instructor does and says, I'm going to do it. And then I realized, I get to blue belt and it's like just getting totally smashed for the first 6 months because I was like, I've got a bunch of techniques, but I don't actually know how to use them in a proper system. I don't actually know how to use them so that I can get the outcome I'm looking for. And so all I'm doing is just basically using like, here's one technique, here's a De La Riva, and then here's a sweep, and then here's a mount, and here's a choke. And then like, I'm just like throwing them at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it's not done in a progressive way. It's not like, okay, what's the prerequisite for me to achieve the outcome that I'm looking for? Okay, I need this, this, and this. And so I need this, this, and this, and therefore I'm going to go down this route. And that wasn't there. So, and then I was like, okay, if I actually want to get better at this thing, I kind of need to be a little bit more proactive about how I'm learning it and learn to apply it in a bit more of a systematic way. And then I start getting better outcomes, and my learning is improved as well because I'm thinking about it better, all that kind of stuff. And so with school, it's the same thing. GCSE is like, at least when I was doing it, is like, you got 11 subjects and, you got to do well at all 11 subjects. So you kind of like, again, the thing is like, you're just picking up a bunch of different things and you don't really know what you're going to do with it at the end of it. And because it's like, for me, the interest in all these different subjects was never sparked in a way which made me think I could do something useful with it. And again, it's just the way the system is set up is so that you can get a external outcome, which is pass an exam, as opposed to the internal outcome, which is what is the benefit to me for me doing this, so, and what excites me about it, so that I can take it forward. And because everything is externalized in that way, I think it's difficult, at least again, my experience has been, it was difficult to internalize any reward process. And then also, like, starting from a very young age is like being told that you're smart and is a different thing to being told that you're a hard worker who's achieving results. And so it was always, so that really like bedded in a fixed mindset for me as a kid. And interestingly, like, I'm reading the book Mindset now, and I recognize a lot of like the statements which are associated with fixed mindset, how I used to be almost all of them, and now I'm straddling that line between fixed and growth. And I have been for a while, but as the years go on, I'm getting more and more and more into the growth mindset. And also it just is making me think about where I still am in those fixed mindsets. But it really got bedded in as a youngster. Like, one of the things is like, you're smart, don't waste that, as opposed to you can work hard at the things you want to achieve, or like you can work hard to get better and better and better at stuff. So for me, it was always drilled in that I need to protect what I know, as opposed to be okay with making mistakes and improving. And so if you have that mindset instead, then the challenge of all these different subjects takes on a different meaning.
Yeah.
instead of it being something like, oh, I'm not very good at maths, screw it, I'm not going to bother with it. It's like, oh, I'm not very good at maths. This is exciting, something for me to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be the same with all the other subjects. And then you can truly find out what you do enjoy and what you don't enjoy, right? And so, like, that's one aspect of that. And so for me, I always felt like I kind of need to protect what I know, and because of the thought that I was smart, I didn't try as hard as I should have done,
Mm-hmm.
and flopped A levels as a culmination of years of basically stop putting the effort in. And then anytime I did put effort in, it was for an external reward, which was somebody said that I'm good at something, or I've passed an exam,
Mm.
and and then so there was nothing intrinsic about it. And then if I felt like I shouldn't, like I didn't get a result that I wanted to in a test, then I just kind of automatically stopped doing the required amount of work.
Yeah.
And then that just got worse and worse and worse as I grew up and came out of like school. And then at university, it was just about making sure I don't make the same mistakes, in the sense that I just want to make sure I get out of here with a 2-1. And it's like it got embedded early on. And I think those are the things that we kind of need to learn how to do better. We need to cultivate a growth mindset as kids, so that we can learn to excel in all these different ways, and realize that all the stuff we talk about, which is making mistakes, is a good thing because it propels you to the next level. You can get better at things because you got a process in place. When you it's just that stuff was just not there. I just didn't learn that as a kid. And also just getting solutions kind of given to you. Like, I had a teacher for economics who would say, like, basically it could be microeconomics, and it's like, here's a supply, here's demand, or something. And it was like, okay, now write this down, and would dictate stuff to us. And it's like, cool, all the kids just sit there and we just write it down. So we've just had a really easy lesson in a very dictatorial, not just she's literally dictating stuff to us to write down, but also no one's having any fun in that class as well.
Yeah.
You just killed that subject for me. You've just killed it. I've got zero ability to think critically in that subject from everything you've done. Anything you've just said to me has gone in one ear, out the other. I'm going to look at that piece of paper that I've written down, and I'm not even going to understand what the fuck I've written down, because you've just told it to us. You haven't actually made us think about what it means. And no one's having fun in the class as well. There's no inspired learning going on. So everything you kind of spoken about is just gone. And that kills people's want to be educated and want to learn something. And then you're also thinking like, okay, this is a decent school that I'm at, and this is what this is what good education is. It just destroys young minds with that kind of thing. So I'm just hoping that that's different on some level now, where I don't know if it is, but I don't see how it is so much, because there's still so many people who need to integrate a growth mindset rather than being that fixed kind of mindset.
So almost like I'm gonna take it somewhere else. Pause for a second. Collate my thoughts.
I spoke too long.
No.
It made you forget how to speak. I'm sorry, but I could have talked about that for ages, because there's so many different levels I could take that.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really, really, really interesting, and that's what I was trying to say. So many good points. But I almost want to take it in a different way, where like you hear about people of the past being like governors of state, or like heads of state, or like presidents, or whatever, and they always had this root in, you hear about like physical endeavors, so like wrestling, or like sportsmen, or they've had to go through something to be where they are. And I think that when you look at our qualification, our profession, personal training, it always helps as a PT to have gone to the well and know the depths of what you're teaching somebody else, because you understand spectrum, right? You understand when somebody's not quite tight with the bar because you've been not quite tight with the bar, and you understand that there's levels to this. I think that's sometimes what's missing in the teaching system, and I think both of us. I don't need to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's like we don't like shit on teachers. Like teachers, like thank you, because like you've got a hard job. Like we know you're not massively paid well, and it's the system isn't there for you to thrive, but hopefully one day it will be. But yeah, I feel like sometimes it's a case of the teachers that I had in the past that I remember learning things from always had something else about them in the rest of their lives. They hadn't just got a qualification and then shown up in a classroom to kind of inspire kids to want to go out into the world and see themselves doing really, really well. It's I think that's a prerequisite for sure. In a strange way, it's almost like, have you had to excel in some way in which you had to bring people together or kind of like make people see or a future for themselves within this setting? You know what I mean? That's a prerequisite to you teaching me about it. Is like, I've got to hear the passion in your voice when you talk about things. I've got to hear the engagement. I've got to hear that you give a shit about this. You know what I mean? That's sometimes like the guy that the dictation example that you gave was just totally like, this is inept of any kind of progression. That you're just wasting your time, you're wasting my time, and it just shouldn't be happening. Let me ask you this question: like, do you think this is an example? This is a case for homeschooling? Would you trust yourself to educate? Say you had two kids tomorrow, a boy and a girl, or whatever. Would you trust yourself to do that for them? Would you trust yourself to have like allotted times where, okay, we're going to do this at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., you're going to break at 10, you're going to chill do your own thing, go track some jits, or go like play at the garden or whatever, and come back in and we're going to do it again, and we're going to do it again. And would you do that? Do you think you could do that? Or...
I would, I would trust myself to lay down the foundations for learning, because I'm learning how to learn all over again. There's a smart way to learn. There's not a smart way to learn, basically. And I'm trying to figure out what those things are. So I almost feel like everything that I'm currently doing is just basically setting myself up to teach the next generation, right? It's like, it's not even this, on some level, it's like, it's not even about me. It's not even about like acquiring it for myself. It's acquiring it because eventually I'm going to have kids and I want to put them in a good spot. And so I would, with the things that I'm learning, and the things that we do is about essentially, it's about being a human being. And I would, well, let's not forget, it's going to be the craziest, hardest thing that you'll ever undertake is raising a kid, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to do it for a very long time. It's the longest project you've ever got. And
second to yourself, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's like, it's a life that's in your hands, basically. And that's an incredible responsibility. And so to be able to say that I would trust myself to teach them how to learn and learn about life, I think that's quite a big statement. But when it comes down to it, I would like to think that I could help them do that, because with the line of work that I do, I've learned a fundamental grounding in, like, a rudimentary grounding in like developmental kinesiology. So I understand how a baby's supposed to move. For example, all of our fundamental movement patterns come from them being accessed in our brain from when we're kids. So if we're not creating a stimulating environment for our children to explore that movement, even literally from the moment they're born, then they are going to have smaller brains, and they're going to have trouble moving well and having physical capacity the older they get. And you don't see it because, kids are vivacious, they run around, they do their thing, but you can see, if you start to develop an eye for it, you can see where things might have gone wrong for them. And like, I'll use a basic example is, before kids can sit up, parents are trying to get their kids to sit up. Like they'll put them up on their butt, and they'll put them in those bouncers and stuff like that. And that's awful. It's just don't do it. It's just not good for your kid. Is
Wow.
basically trying to teach it how to stabilize before its nervous system knows that it can stabilize. The reason why a kid grows the way that it does is because that's how the nervous system is maturing for movement. So you got to let it go through that process. You just need to stimulate it by putting it in the right environment rather than forcing it to skip a stage, let's say.
Amazing.
So yeah, so for example, me learning this stuff is me setting myself up to have a to teach my kids well, and then understanding things like children have no concept of sharing when they're 3 or 4 years old. It comes after that. So if they're not stealing something, but just taking something away from another kid, or they're getting upset if another kid is playing with their toy, it's like you can't verbalize to a child that this behavior is not going to get you anywhere. You just can't do that. So then the thing to figure out there is like, okay, how do we make it so that the kid is developing and learning through experience how to do these things without you having to verbalize it, right? So
one of my pet peeves is seeing an adult. It's like you see this on the gym floor, and I'm sad to say that I've been this guy on the gym floor sometimes, where a parent's talking to a child and they're having a conversation with this tiny human, and they're like, "Don't you understand?" It's like, no, no, I definitely don't.
I really don't.
I'm just trying to make you understand, but I think it's such a I'm losing my words today, but it's such a redundant process where it's just like it's not going to happen. Like let's think of a cleverer way. Let me accept the child is here. Like cool, child is here. Like let me kind of go through life and maybe kind of expose them to this thing where maybe they haven't had the right answer the first time, but telling them and like almost like your dictation class. It's like just write this down. Why? Yeah. I don't know. It's like, well, write it down. It's like, in what context do I use this? I don't know. Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Exactly, man. Exactly. There's so much of that. So essentially, like, everything that I have an interest in, everything I'm trying to learn is, like, eventually is supposed to help out the kids that I'm going to have. Is like, how can I make that environment as successful for them as possible to be good human beings, basically. How can I make that environment as good as possible for them to be able to fulfill their potential as human beings, and learn how to do that. Yeah, learn how to do that as well as possible from a young age. And it's about being aware of my own limitations. It's about being aware of where I've come from, what I've grown into, or what I'm going to keep growing into. It's the experience of education for me, and like being a kid in a fixed mindset, and then becoming an adult who's trying to change that fixed mindset and is evolving into more of a growth mindset. And then because I'm aware of that, I can show my kids how to do that. And so I think all the foundational stuff is the things that I want to learn. What is going to help my kid to be able to make the most out of this world, make the most out of life? What are those skills? And that is, that is like critical thinking. That is having a good fundamental understanding and awareness of how to learn, so that they can pick up any subject that they want, any activity that they want, any experience that they want, and get something out of it. So then I think that can help them within the domain that they're interested in to do well a bit more autonomously with guidance instead. So
giving them the tools, right?
That's it, exactly. It's just about giving them tools.
That's the one, man. That's the one. Yeah. I just had a thought mid while you were talking. I was like, oh shit! If we have kids one day, they might see this. That would be cool.
Hey, that's bad, right?
See, we gave a shit about you before you even existed.
You hear that? Now go clean your room.
You better be grateful. Gratefulness. Where's your awareness today? You have no awareness, no alignment. Get out of here.
But Dad, I'm 4 years old. Shut up.
Do you understand the concept of awareness? Do you? Do you even understand it? No.
You know what's interesting about that? Kids have a lot more of concepts of stuff than we give them credit for. Yeah, it's mad shit. Like that book, The Secret Life of the Mind, right? There was interesting experiments where they done is like what do kids who can't even speak yet? So basically, from newborns to toddlers, like what do they understand about human actions? So like I'll try and remember it properly, but like one of them, it's just because it's so fascinating. Like one of them was
cool, man.
yeah, super cool because they had so they had a button and so there's like the kid was shown somebody who's sitting in front of a button, and what that person does is like they've got free use of their hands and their legs and everything like that, but they press the button by pressing it with their head. So they just bend down, press the button. Nice. And then basically the kid is imitating these this person, or not imitating, but it's just basically it sees the person press the button, and then it's basically we're watching the kid to see what they do. Is like, do they press the button with their head as well? Do they just imitate? It's like, no, the kid still uses his hands, so he uses his hand to press the button. And the reason for pressing the button is because there's a reward behind it. So that's how you get the kid to do the action. It's just basically the person presses the button, they get a reward, and the kid wants to do the same thing, right? Because there's something there. And then instead, what they do is with the person pressing the button, they make it so that the hands are tied up. So like they don't have access to their hands because they're carrying a bunch of stuff. So they've got a bunch of bags, they've got a bunch of things in their hands, so that it means that they can't use their hands to press the button. And then they go and do the same thing. So they've got their hands full, and then they go and press the button with their head. They just lean forward and press the button with their head. And then the kid still presses the button with his hand because it realizes that no, he's got his hands full. So because he's got his hands full, I'm going to. I don't have my hands full. I can still use my hand. It was something like that basically. So it basically figured out that what we learned was that kids aren't just about imitation. They have concepts of they have their own the concept to do things without without imitation, like to make a decision is there, and it's just that it just gets developed over time. It's something like that.
Intuition, right? Intuition, like they have that intuition out the gate to need to follow, but to an extent where you're just like, oh well, this makes more sense, Bob, rather than kind of being like bunk. Yeah, man. That's this kind of gives me the thought that you know when your family comes over and there's like in my family right now, we're blessed where there's so many little kids. My cousin sister's had a little baby boy, or I think he's one now, and then my other cousin brother, he's got 2 young kids, and there's loads of little kids, and almost like for adults come over, and you're just like, I can't be asked with you guys. You go over there. Like you're kind of done. Your development's kind of done. I want to go see how these guys develop. Like that's way more fun. That's way more fun.
Totally.
Like, what's going on? What's going on in these cogs? Like how are we developing since the last time?
Exactly.
So
you know what? I just realized I kind of messed it up. So when like the person's hands are free and they press it with their head, the kid does the same thing. They press it with their head. But when the person's hands are full and then they press it with their head, the kid's like, oh, I don't need to do that. They press it with their hand. That's what they do.
Right.
That's what I realized. I was like, there was supposed to be a difference between the 2 results in the experiment. And so that's what it is. It's like, okay, if I have to get the reward by pressing it with my head, I'll do that because the other person's hands are free. Why would they not? They're basically in their own little minds. They're figuring out that they don't need that the person must be pressing it with their head because that's what they must need to do to be able to get this reward. But when they see that the person's hands are full, they're like, oh no, I don't have to do that. I can still use my hand. So they don't even know how to speak yet. They know how to do these things. And it's super fascinating. It's just like they have.
That is really interesting.
We've got concepts of like mathematics. You've got concepts of proper action that you need to take. It's all there. It's about getting it out. That's basically that's what's really fascinating about that.
That's so interesting because you kind of there's examples of kids in my family who will follow their parents' examples and have seen the same way this kid's seen an adult get a reward. Oh shit!
What's that, man?
Plug myself in.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if this charger will work. I might have to go grab the other one, but it's cool. Yeah, a kid will see an adult not getting a reward, but maybe kind of getting sympathy or getting some kind of like just sympathy. And then you'll see the kid mimicking this. Oh, I'm kind of, I feel like this today, or I'll do this. It's like, really, you have no concept of that, but you see the kid trying to mimic what the adult's doing and looking for the same response. And then that's almost them kind of like flexing that muscle and seeing what happens when I do this. What happens when I play this card? How will the world around me kind of react to me? So yeah, I think that's such an interesting thing to look forward to, is to see the development of not just a child but your child, and be like, I was like that. And I remember me kind of falling in that same pitfall, and then almost, you don't necessarily want to give them the leg up, but you'll be there with the answers, well, some of the answers hopefully, but then it's more just about, like you said, setting the stage and letting them play, and then being like, okay, like how can we actually traverse this better than the way I did.
Completely.
But it was only ever going to be this way, because you can tell that at our roots we weren't necessarily happy with how things were explained to us, because we're in a profession where all we do is explain things to people. We go away and we learn things. We use the investment that clients pay us for our time to go away and learn more shit. It's like, I want to come back and explain you more things. I've learned this now. And that need, or that kind of glove that fits, has to have come from somewhere. Whereas if we were properly catered for when we were younger, the chances of us feeling, no, I need to go into this, I need to kind of do it better, probably a bit less. Whereas like the fact that both of us had this experience where, I don't know if teachers kind of knew how to teach me, or the consensus in the room was that I don't know if I respected this authority or this opportunity as much as I should. If that was different, then we probably wouldn't have this setting that we have now.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's like, I mean, it could be coming from a different place. It's like, it's interesting to think of what kind of place it would be coming from. Would it even be necessary? Would we still end up on this path? Because this is ultimately actually the thing that interests us to do most and to do as a living. It's an interesting question to ask. But I just realized I didn't answer that question that you asked originally, which was basically, what would you see yourself doing if you weren't in this line of work, right?
I totally forgot the question, man.
I just brought it back around. Like, it just made me think of it again. I was like, that's such a difficult question to answer. I really don't know.
If you had to just like make it a fun argument, a fun kind of like, I want to do this, rather than be like, I have to earn money from this. Does that make it easy to answer?
No, not even. Like, I think because I think I would still be doing the thing that I'd really want to do. Actually, maybe I do, like, off the top of my head, it's just kind of come to me. It's because of my interest in neuroscience over the last, like, say, 6 months to a year, and being inspired by some there's a couple of neuroscientists. There's one in particular, and it's like, it's Andrew Huberman, who's like I've been talking to you about, and just like how he's able to communicate some neuroscientific concepts and stuff like that. And it's just, and also because neuroscience for me, I feel like it's a fundamental thing to understand how we are, like to help with that kind of thing, which may help us answer the question of why we are the way we are. So, but it does a big job of, like, trying to understand human behavior. Basically, I think it's really helpful for that. And so because of my interest in it, I would say, maybe I would like to be a neuroscientist. Yeah,
love that, man. That's so deep. That's but yeah, it's legit, man. It's legit. I'm thinking I can see you in that role as well. I can see you kind of being highly analytical in that setting. It's interesting. I'm thinking about the question in my head, and I'm like, I know this is not what I would actually do, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
I want to be a race car driver. Just go completely the other way and avoid all responsibility. But like, I want to go risk my life every day, get in the car, rip around the track, get out of it, get loads of sponsorship money, and be like, I don't give a shit about nothing, about helping people, about all this stuff. I'm just totally the other way. But no, it's not true. I would definitely have to, like, I would probably be like the race car driver who's like in the pit lane, be like, how are you today? Are you okay? Like, okay, your leg hurts? Oh, you're okay. Yeah, it's but yeah, sorry about that life. That really does interest me. Like, just rallying
Yeah.
and like big. Have you seen the movie Rush?
No, not Rush.
Oh,
Is
dude, you got it.
the Nicky Lauda one?
Yeah, Nicky Lauda, James Hunt. You got to watch
Okay.
that. That's epic. That is
Yeah,
properly
okay.
epic. Just two completely contrasting human beings. One
Did
of
you
them
end
is
up
just
watching? Yeah, sorry, go on.
no. Yeah. They
It was
just
Ford versus Ferrari as well.
yeah. I watched that. Did you see that?
I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Did you like it?
Yeah, there was that one particular scene that I really enjoyed, which was when he takes Ford around the track, and then
Yeah.
dude just starts crying his eyes out. That was so good. The geezer played so well. It was so funny.
That was a perfect like example of somebody who's about this part of the job, but not about this part of the job. You know what I mean? Like, kind of get in the car to get ragged around. It's like, this is what your company does. Your company makes
Exactly.
this badass automobile. You give it to Ken Miles, and he'll show you how to use it. Whereas like you're just there, like in your suit, but you have no idea what's actually going on.
Exactly,
Yeah,
man.
man.
It's like, this is why you cannot leave this in this other geezer's hands. But yeah, what was it about Lauda and Hunt?
Oh man, it was just cool because seeing their duality, like both of them, like James Hunt obviously just a playboy, but you can tell there's a deep kind of respect for controlling a car and actually driving it properly, and he has that anxiety where before every race he throws up, and he's just totally off his game. But then Nicky Lauda is the guy who's like in the pit lane working on all the little details of the car and like talking to the pit lane mechanics and being like, we're up till 2 a.m. optimizing the car, and like he's about the details, about all the little processes. But then at the end, when it comes time to like risk it all, he's like, I don't need to. Like, I'm cool. Like I've fully actualized myself through other processes. Where James Hunt's like, no, I want to race. I just want to race. Like he's just about that one kind of. He's not really interested. He's really interested in the car or like kind of doing the details. He's just more interested in being out there on the track and that kind of thrill. Is yeah, they both have their separate pieces, but something about that is just properly fun. You know, just like I just want to tame this beast and just ride it, and see what happens.
That would be it. Like, actually, no. If you put it in that context, if it was like if I could just be anything, I would be an athlete. Like
Nice, yeah.
And like probably a tennis player. I'd probably like to be a tennis player.
Nice.
Like that would be my thing. I'm like fully inspired by Federer on that level. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Beast. Hasn't he got a Netflix thing coming out?
Has he?
I think so. I think he's got something. I saw this. It was on YouTube. The advert. Check it out. Maybe just give it a Google or something because I'm sure it saw either it was like I'm sure it's a video series or something or whatever. Quinn's like yes.
Yeah,
I need to find it. I need to find this.
Check it out. I know. Like I'm kind of because with him, I get the impression that he doesn't. He's like if he's going to do a biographical kind of thing, he's the kind of dude who's just going to wait when his career's over. So if this end up being one of those type things, I'm like, oh shit, that probably means he's thinking about retiring soon, maybe. But yeah, okay, no, I've got no idea, so I'll have a look into that and see what.
Might be making up. I don't know because I remember just seeing like his RF. The way they've done the logo is really cool, right? I remember just seeing that kind of in some shimmery shit. I don't even know what that means. It's like coming out with his own like clothing label or like fucking alcohol or something. I don't even know. But maybe. But he's a bad man. He's a bad man.
Don't get me so jacked up like that, man.
Did you see it?
It's like there's nothing. I'm like, God damn it.
Sykes.
Yeah, exactly. That would be it. I think I would appreciate. I think I would appreciate being an athlete.
Yeah, definitely, man. The whole jit side of things and like wrestling that's the side that would definitely draw me, man, for sure. Yeah. Or just MMA in general. That's so exciting. So even just kind of training, the little training that we do right now obviously lockdown wise, it's so invigorating, man, knowing that like this is the, you have to involve all of this, like you have to be so about this process. It's fun optimizing it in the actual learning of, oh, this is how you throw a jab and this is how you throw a cross, but then also the back end of like dealing with the head game, and I'm sure this is similar across all sports. But yeah, just nerding out about how the body moves as well. That's so interesting. I was watching shot put, and have you heard these? What are they called? It's like Wired or something on YouTube, where they break down like how far can you actually humanly throw a shot put, or how fast can a human run, or why is it impossible for a human to run past like X miles per hour? Breaking down the biomechanics of it all, so interesting, and learning about how these techniques are developed for whether it be fighting or whether it be throwing something or whatever. I think that stuff's just mega interesting, man. Mega interesting.
Send me a link to, especially the speed one. So
I will do. Yeah, we just randomly watch them. You know, you kind of sit there watching, eating food sometimes. You're like, I should watch something kind of vaguely thought inspiring, like rather than just kind of watching like How I Met Your Mother or something.
As like, man, what was I going to say? It was, oh fuck, I forgot. Oh, that was it. I was going to ask you the question is like, if it would be about that MMA life, like as in being an MMA athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so you'd be like, the question I have is like, you'd be happy to take some smacks to the head, knowing that at 50, everything might fall out.
Yeah, I think so. But then I think you've got to, I don't know. And I think this is such a subjective thing, man, because you don't know what's going to happen. I could look after my brain and look after my joints and thing, and then just walk outside tomorrow and get hit by a car. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, like I'm not trying to go out there and get punched in the face. Like, ideally, you work it like a Mighty Mouse, right? Like you hit and don't get hit. And that's I got a massive head, right? So I need to be really good at slipping and rolling and all that stuff. So it's I think it's just I would definitely take that risk. But I think you'd tailor your game to the point where, okay, I'm going to stand at this range, but then I'm going to try and come inside and clinch and work that part of my game. Because when you like, this is one of the best things that Silvio says about jiu-jitsu and wrestling, is that there's no like strikes to the head. Like you're not going to get hurt through like brain damage. Hopefully, you're not going to get dropped on your head or anything. But yeah, I think I would. No, you see examples of it, obviously going that way, but then I would just think like, if it's a passion, if it's something that you're going to invest your whole life into, then you gotta not risk that, but you've got to just take all the precautionary measures you can and still do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. And just like, I wonder if there's anything that is your man Andrew. I was going to call him Brian again there.
Like Jude said, I've got that image of Brian the dog from Family Guy now. It's like when you say that,
just there in his suit, in his big grey suit, like Brian. He's I wonder if he had any insight into bringing the brain back to a state pre getting smashed in the head. Would that work?
There's physical damage that goes on, man.
I bet.
That's the physical damage. I think, as far as I know, is taking it repeatedly can cause permanent damage. Is like you can take physical damage and you can recover from it. It's what happens during a concussion. Is like, you've got a little bit of a physical, you've got to take a little bit of physical damage to the brain. Essentially, it goes through some like bruising and inflammation and stuff, and then you got to give it the right amount of time and the right rehab, and then it recovers.
Interesting.
I think. And but taking something repeatedly, where it just, that's the issue. One big issue is taking the hits repeatedly, especially setting yourself up to take more hits when you haven't fully recovered. So that's and that's one of the things that happens with concussion is people go back too soon, and then it makes it more likely that they'll get it again. And then they do get it again, and they take longer to recover from it. And then the symptoms last a lot longer too. So it's just having the appropriate amount of recovery for that kind of thing. doing everything you can to make sure your brain health is up to scratch.
You ever had a concussion before?
Probably when I
Yeah.
fell off my bike in 2015, I landed on my head, basically.
Yeah, same.
Right. Same thing. Like
Fell off a bike. Yeah. Off a bike onto like straight into the pavement. Crack. Like no helmet. It was bad.
No helmet. Jesus,
Yeah.
dude. Like I had a helmet on, right, and it cracked all the way through. So exactly,
Your helmet
like
broke.
the helmet broke. The helmet
What?
cracked all the way through.
Where did
So
you get your
I'm
helmet
like,
from, man? Stop buying your helmets from Argos, man. What the fuck?
or that's how hard I hit the fucking ground. But
Yeah.
that's what I
Shit,
mean. It's
man.
like the fact that you're alive and you're not mangled brain and not having a friggin'
I remember
helmet.
I remember like so it was this is so thick. It wasn't like my fault or the guy whose car I hit because he cut in front of me's fault. It was both of our faults in the sense that it was pissing down with rain. I'm cycling home from work and it was when I was working in London, right? And it was cracking down with rain. I want to get home and I just want to just chill out. And I'm pedaling like hard, like on like so there's two lanes kind of going forward, and the outside lane turns left as well, and I'm on the inside of this guy, and I'm keeping up with the traffic, and the traffic's kind of going along at I don't even know how many miles an hour, and he doesn't indicate, but he's there positioned to turn left, and I'm not thinking about whether he's going to go that way. I'm just thinking I want to get here, I want to get gone, right? And he just turns left, and I hit his bonnet and just fly off the top of his bonnet. And just straight like, but the way I hit the floor and the way I stood up straight away afterwards was almost like an instantaneous like crash and I stood straight up and was like, what the fuck happened? Like completely, just a complete snap reaction because I knew it was going to happen. You know, you kind of brace for impact a little bit, right. And just kind of went over the top of the handlebars, went over the top of his bonnet, smashed my head into the pavement, stood up, my head like it's a slight scarring over here, slight scarring on my nose, and we're just like. So like totally in a haze, and the guy was really nice. He was like, "I'm really sorry. Like, I was like, "No, don't worry about it. I only live here. I'll go home. It'll be fine." And he was like, "You sure? I'll take you to hospital." And I was like, "No, I don't need to go to hospital. I can't be bothered. It'll take ages."
That's really
yeah, super nice of him. Like I'm sure cyclists out there have got horrible stories, but luckily this guy was nice. And I remember going home. And like the same way I've got my headphones in my ear here, I just bought a brand new pair of headphones like 2 days before, and I was wearing them, and it got cut. It like got severed, and I was like, oh man, I lost. Like I was looking at my headphones, and I was doing this, and I had this one. I didn't have the other one. I was like, oh man, I was so annoyed. I remember looking in the mirror and being like, oh, it's all like this was all like messed up, and my nose was cut and whatever. And then I remember like going here and being like, oh, it's just lodged in my ear. Like my headphone was just the thing was severed, but because I hit my head on this side, it cut somehow, and it was just like lodged behind like gravel and like blood. And I was like, oh, that's not very nice. That's not very nice. Yeah.
So you like hit this part of your head?
Yeah, like here somewhere. There's this. You can roughly see it. I don't even know if you can see it on the camera, but yeah, it's not that deep. But yeah, it was concussion for sure. I'm gonna go work the next day. Everyone's looking at me like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm okay." It's just like, I didn't sleep at all the whole night. My head just throbbing, and my mentor being like, "Go and see somebody right now." And I'm like, "I'm fine." He's like, "No, you're not."
Good. Did you go to hospital?
Yeah, I went to a walk-in place, and they just said, "Yeah, you've got a concussion. Like you should take a few days off of work and just go and chill out." And yeah, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't okay either by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah.
Right, geez. That's lucky, man. Especially like that part of your head where you still got some thick skull there as well. Because with that, it's like without a helmet. I mean, that's kind of fuck, man. That's lucky.
Yeah. My fat ass landing on my head, like at that kind of angle, it's not going to go well. But yeah, the pavement's like heavily dented now. I apologize.
I'm sorry, counsel. You're going to have to repair that.
Yeah. What happened in your one?
On my one, man, it was fucking pathetic. It was so lame, but it was one of those where I'm like, I have no idea how it happened. I've just been pissed off about it ever since. It was so like because you were around Liverpool Street at one point, right?
Yeah.
So basically, Bishopsgate. outside the main entrance of Liverpool Street Station. The traffic lights are there. I used to have cleats as well, so I was clipped into my bike, and then I'm just waiting for the traffic lights to turn green, and then I start going, and start to go, and then I felt a little jam. And I was like, oh shit, like it's fine because I got it back under control again. But then I started picking up a bit of speed, and it's probably only like 50 feet down the road, and there was just a jam again. So my handlebars just did this, and I went over the top of them, and my hands were still on the handlebars. So you can imagine me flying through the air with like my hands still on the handlebars. So I'm going head first, like diving at the floor. It was ridiculous, and I because of the way the handlebars jammed, they went to my left, and so they threw me over, and I was kind of turned, and so I landed on the right side of my head.
Oh man!
And, like it's as if like I just got suplexed onto my neck. So it kind of was like that, and so that's where you can imagine like it's right here. So that's like a pretty thin part of the skull, and luckily I was helmet because that's why like the helmet ended up breaking through.
Oh man,
it just like cracked through it. And but yeah, same sort of thing, whereas like you land, you fall, but there's that, for some reason there's the second of wherewithal where you're like, I looked behind me just to check that there was no traffic coming because it was at traffic lights, and if there was traffic, I'd be lucky because there's not much speed. So I just look behind me, I pick up my bike and I take it over to the side of the road and put it up on the pavement, and then I take a second to just like check in. That's when you just go, oh, what the fuck just happened? And then I'm kind of like, yeah, exactly, I'm alive. I've got my hands on my knees. I'm just like trying to think, is like, can I feel myself? Are my arms okay? Like, what's hurting? And there were several people. I think there were 4 people. There was like 3 guys and a woman who were there, and they're like, mate, are you okay? Like, just to,
nice of them,
exactly, which was nice of them as well, especially because you imagine like in that area, it's just busy city execs and stuff like that, and city folks. Just like everybody's just rushing, but there were actually like people who actually
Moorgate.
And so I just went completely mad, busy ass area. So it's like usually people just don't give a shit, and but they they were together and they stopped, and they were like, "Are you okay? Do you need a hand?" And I just I looked at them. So, but when I looked at them, I didn't see any faces. It was as if like the upper part of my vision had blurred out, and I could see the lower half of them. So that's how I could tell it was like three guys and a woman, because I saw 3 sets of trousers and a skirt, basically. But I couldn't make out the faces. I was like starry eyed and blurry. I was like, oh fuck, maybe there's something wrong. And I was like, because it was literally 3 minutes from work, I was going into work, so I just went, no, I just work around the corner, and lucky it's a healthcare clinic. I'm just going to go see somebody there. And so I just walked my bike over. I got in, and then, that was that. So I canceled my first client because that was 15 minutes later. I had all the cuts and grazes and stuff, and I just needed to make sure I was okay. And the chiropractor just looked at me and just gave me a little once over, just to make sure I was all right. And then so I was like, fine. Yeah, I was like, I'm fine. I'll still do my next session. So next session comes in, start training him, and about 5-10 minutes in, while I'm explaining an exercise, I start explaining it, and I was going into it, and then I just stopped myself, and I just looked at him. I go, does it sound like I'm slurring my speech? And he went, what? No, you're fine. I was like, because it feels like I'm slurring my speech.
Oh man.
So he was like, you're fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was like, no, you're fine. But for me, I was putting a lot of effort into talking so that it didn't. So I felt like I was slurring my speech. So I was like, okay. But it was weird. And it was just one of those things where like the chain jammed, threw me off my handlebars, and like it was just an innocuous thing where I was like, all right, fine. Why'd you do that? Fuck you, bike. I'm kicking you now.
That's bad. Give me 1 second. We're right back. 1 second.
Yeah, 1 second. No worries, man. No worries. All right, we're back. That
was a crazy story, man. That was a crazy story. You've, it's not, whenever that kind of shit happens. I remember what happened to me once when I was playing rugby, and
Right.
This guy kept getting kind of offloaded the ball, and he would just try and run at our line as hard as he could. And we were playing a really good team as well. And I remember like him kind of running into a few of our players, and then those players not necessarily being able to take the hit and not being able to kind of take him down as well. And I'd be like, okay, cool. Let me just try. And he was a similar size to me. I remember us two just kind of running at each other, and like him running at me, me running at him. Not necessarily running at him to tackle him, just running at him to stop him, because he was really good. He was really good. And I remember us just like plowing into each other, and I'm sure it was like head contact or whatever. Both of us weren't wearing a scum crap, like that would help. And that I definitely had concussion from that. Had concussion from that, where we're just like, I remember standing up and just being like, I can taste weird things in my mouth. I don't know what these things are, but like you just feel messed up. And after the game, you're just like, what the hell's going on right now? But yeah, it's not a fun thing.
Was that was a head-to-head collision?
Yeah, it was just like both, because it was the same kind of breakdown each time, where he would offload the ball they would offload the ball to him. He would run onto the ball and just run into our line, and then we would have to take him down. Sometimes it would take like two people to tackle him, or maybe even more. And then it would rook, and it would rook, and then they would recover the ball. They would pass it out again. Someone similar like him would do the same thing again. And on that breakdown, I was like, I know what they're going to do. So I was like, I'm going to try and tackle him. And we just hit each other like super hard. I remember that everyone just coming like, ooh, like that was a hard hit on both sides. And
you can like hear it as well, right?
Yeah. And it was a proper. It was not. I can still kind of remember it. Luckily I can remember it. My memories ain't completely gone. I remember like people being like, ooh, that was a hard hit. But not advisable. Maybe just kind of let him run and just tap his ankle on the way through or something. Just don't just take it. Don't just be like, I can take it. Like, not clever.
Oh man, brutal. That's what it's like. Rugby's like just car crashes, man. That's all that stuff is.
But it's I respect the hell out of those guys, so especially like Aussie rules guys, the ones that play sevens and stuff. Sevens for sure. Sevens because they're athletes, man. They're absolute like beasts to cover a whole rugby pitch and be like six of the people in yourself. That's violent, man. That is the level of fitness you got to have to do that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's I don't know, man. Actually, never. That's one sport that I never really played. I was never really exposed to as a kid. It was rugby.
It's fun, man. It is fun. And I think it's always good. Like the camaraderie of like rugby guys is always talked about, right? But it's definitely different to other sports. It's weirdly, I don't know why, but it's I think weirdly it's linked to cricket in a way, where like you see kind of the camaraderie again. It's cricket and rugby for some reason have a similar kind of thing, where football, I don't think football has the same. Football is kind of a bit more flashy, right? Kids that play football kind of almost have a bit more. It's not as kind of gritty. Whereas both cricket and rugby, you end up you hear stories about kind of just going down the pub afterwards and just everyone kind of getting smashed. Whereas football, you don't necessarily hear that.
Right. There's as in amongst the players.
Yeah, players and the whole kind of just the whole like occasion around the game is usually like, okay, play the game and then just go here afterwards and just get smashed. That's what you hear with most of the players.
Yeah, no, there's definitely there in football as well.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know.
It's like because you didn't play much football, right?
No.
Yeah.
You used to start football.
Yeah, like no, it was it's still there. It's just like I think Sam will testify to that for sure as well because because he did like Sunday league football for a good 10 years.
Oh wow.
And there's the boys would be up at tournaments and stuff like that. Actually, like in your neck of the woods as well, like in Leicester and Wolverhampton,
nice.
Other areas around there. And they'll play. Like, it's supposed to be like a 4 or 5 match tournament, so they'll play a couple games on the Saturday, and if they make it through, they'll have games on Sunday.
Okay.
So even if they made it through, they'll get fucking hammered on the Saturday night.
Oh, shit.
and then playing the next day.
That's
just
wild.
Like, it's wild, man. Like, how did you do that? How is that even possible?
It's crazy. It's like the young body. You just made a magic at that age, man. Do whatever you want.
That's it. Yeah, but you're gonna pay for it. You're writing that check. It's gonna get cashed.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. It's like it's what we talked about with Grace last week, which was you just you get to 30 years old and people think you're supposed to break down. It's like nah, that's not true. It's just what you've done to yourself over that period of time, which determines whether you're going to break down or not, right?
Totally agree. And I think that's it's so much fun when you meet people that kind of almost, well, the kind of circles that we run in right now. Everyone's just after getting better, being better, optimizing this, optimizing that, optimizing the other.
Yeah.
Is this is what life really needs. Is just kind of people to think about optimizing all this shit, and then eventually you're gonna start breaking down. But hopefully you want it to be as controlled as possible, right?
Yeah, that's it exactly. It's like I have more of a say in it than otherwise. Because that's the thing. It's like you probably had it as well, but I remember, specifically with one client in their 50s who was like, "I'm in better shape than I was once by the time we finished training. So I'm in better shape than I was when I got married, and I'm close to being in the best shape that I've ever been in." You're in 50, you're 50, So there's always something for you to get better at. There's always something for you to improve on for the sake of your own health and the quality of your life.
100%. There's viewers or listeners and viewers listening to this right now. What is it about your life that you want to improve and get better at over the next 5 years? Like 5 years. Random questions to throw out there. They're like, what's the goal? What purpose are we working toward?
That's a good question, man. It's a very good question. It's a thought-provoking question. It can strike a fire in someone, or it can make them feel a little bit awkward.
I think it's good. It's good if it feels.
Either way, it's good.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I think it makes you question a lot of, like you said, questions, right? Questions about whether you're doing the best practices and what those practices. Well, back to that same kind of analogy at the start about that show Chopped, where it's like, are you coming to the ingredient table with a load of shitty ingredients and expecting it to turn into a nice shiny cake, or do we need to work on these ingredients? Do we need to work on these little the factors of your life to make sure that they add up to a good sum at the end of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Exactly, man. You can always substitute in better ingredients, right?
Just get your ass to the grocery store, man.
How far are we going to take this analogy?
just the organic grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take it to go down the organic aisle.
That's the one. Yeah, free from.
Be careful what kind of free from, though, man.
Yeah,
just share a load of free from.
Too right. Yeah. Faking it.
Exactly, man. It just made me think when you talk about rugby as well. Were there any sports that you wish you had been more involved in or played more? Or actually played at all?
Ice hockey.
Oh, is it?
I wish I got exposed to that shit young, because I get onto an ice rink and I'm so shit. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate that I'm shit. And I want to, ice hockey. Loads. Everyone, loads. Here we go. Ice hockey.
I thought, ice hockey because you get the chance to just beat the shit out of people as well.
No, I remember watching Mighty Ducks when I was little, being like, that's amazing. Yeah,
Mighty Ducks. What a film, man. Flying V.
Oh, I can't remember any of the references. I remember the duck mouth just being super sick and having the cross sticks. Dude, like super awesome. And then swimming. I wish I'd kind of taken that further. I learned to swim like too late. I was super lazy with it. Man, gymnastics for sure. That'd been super fun. Yeah, super fun. But just any and all, man. Just a lot of exposure. I think you can take it super far. I think my kids have got a lot to look forward to in terms of like just being pushed into every physical and like mental endeavor. It's like, you got to go from this class to the next class to the next class. I'll drive you everywhere. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but, exactly.
Let's figure this out.
So the kids, they're probably be like, back the fuck up, Dad.
Yeah.
It's like, this is too much. It's like, I just want to play with my Tonka truck.
Like, nope. You take that truck. We're going to go gymnastics. And play with it in the pool afterwards.
Exactly. That's the other thing. That's going to be an interesting one. Is imagine like they end up being like so different to what you envisaged, or what like even like so different to yourself. You know, it's like you look at him, you're like, how did you come out of me?
Yeah.
I don't. How did I like? Where did this come from? It's like
Where did this
you're
come from?
nothing like what I thought. You don't care about being physical. Let's say, like imagine that was a thing. It's like, okay, how do we reconcile that? How do we figure this out?
It's interesting, man. That's a really
Yeah.
interesting topic. That's crossed my mind before for sure. But it's
Mm.
just like then the game starts all over again. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
game just starts all over again. Like how do I have to create some kind of bridge with this human, and yeah, you just figure it out. And I suppose you can't play the game on your terms. You have to just play the game on the games play by the game's rules, right?
Yeah.
But you know the outcome has to be the same. I have to form some kind of partnership with this human to make sure that I can give them the best, and then to a certain extent, if they want it, these are the things that have served me well. So do you want these things, or do you want to crack on with whatever you're doing? So,
Yeah, exactly. That's where it comes down to. Yes, so where it comes down to those fundamentals again. Is like, what can we use that will apply as best as possible in any domain, rather than just giving them skills in one particular thing, right?
Too right, man. Too right. Yeah, I remember hearing this thing about like Amish people, and they have like the highest. I'm gonna get this wrong now, but I think it's like the word is like shafa, and that means like a worker. Like you're a worker in any domain. Like you are the person who just will be a grafter for it, and that's like these little virtues that you want to pass on, like without being too constrictive in what things you're teaching your child or whatever. You want to pass on like virtues like that, like just be a workhorse. Like you whatever you pick, just be the hardest worker in the room, and you'll be cool. Yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't matter. Like there's this conception is like, you know, you've got a certain level of ability, and that's it. You're just gonna live up to that. It's like, nah, man. It doesn't matter, because if you don't work, then that ability doesn't shine through. And if you do work, you can surpass that ability as well. And so, so basically, in either case, you just got to work.
Yeah, man. It's like I think it's like a lot to do with exposure to role models young, because then you start like what we talked about earlier about the problem with schools sometimes is you don't see the end goal. You don't see like what are my efforts going towards. Whereas if you know that there's been people who have gone through physical endeavors or even mental endeavors and have achieved amazing things having done that, then you start tying your own journey to that similar kind of path, right?
Yeah.
It gives more meaning to what you're doing, and even if the person in front of you, like your teacher or your parent or whatever, isn't inspiring, you can kind of find inspiration from people that have done and been before you, right?
Yeah. There's Jordan Peterson said something really, like, it was profound. Again, same sort of thing. I'm going to fuck it up as well, but it was basically who you admire is a manifestation, or what you admire is a manifestation of what you value. And I think it's something like that.
Yeah.
But it basically, because basically the point was, so like, you know, you could take it to the extreme end with like with athletes, for example. Everybody admires, look up to athletes, because it's just what's taking place is somebody fulfilling potential right before your eyes, right? And so when you admire that, that's your own way of basically saying, I want the same thing. And you wanting the same thing is basically you wanting to achieve your potential, but it feels, and that's why there's inspiration or admiration placed on people in those domains, because you can see it happening in front of you, and then, you know, it's that's basically what it is. It's like admiration is just a manifestation of you wanting to, of like the potential you see yourself, but you're seeing it somewhere else, and you're wanting to draw inspiration from it, I guess, at some level. It's like there's one thing where, because you can see how like there's a lot of frustration as well. There's like it's an interesting, first of all, to me, that's like, it's an interesting world where people are admired to that extent, and there is that inspiration. People are put up on a pedestal. That's the problem, is I think. is where it's put up on a pedestal is like, and it's essentially by putting something up on a pedestal, we're automatically making it unattainable without realizing it. You see what I mean? Because when you put something up on a pedestal, you're glorifying something, and when you glorify something, it just feels like it's something that's unattainable. And even though it's something that you want, you're putting up in a position where you can't achieve it. Whereas, and there's the beauty in seeing somebody achieve something on that level, which is like you're seeing potential being fulfilled right in front of your eyes. And that's an incredible thing to witness because of everything that goes on behind the scenes to make that happen. But because that's also the only thing that you're seeing, like the tip of the iceberg, that's the only thing that you're seeing. It's like it's a beautiful thing to witness. But then if you're not seeing, or if you're not aware, I haven't become aware of what the process was to get to that level, it instills even more of a fixed mindset. Is what happens, because you're just like, oh, that just level of ability just happens, it just comes about. And it's like, no, you haven't seen the 10 years to become the overnight success, right? It's a fascinating thing to observe. Like famous people achieving stuff, and then how so-called regular folks' reaction to that is.
Too right, man. Too right. And I think that's where, like last week talking to Grace, the overarching feeling, we talked about this earlier in the week as well, is like having somebody come to you, tell you that every day I do this, every day this is how I do, this is what I do, and this is why I get to be great at what I do. That having that understanding young, I think, is so important, because then you don't spend years wasting kind of like, oh, I should do this and I should do this, and it's not like have exposure to all these things when you're young, when you're little, when you're a teenager. But then as you kind of progress into late teens and 20s, well, let's find some routine, let's find some structure, and let's stick to our guns, right? And ride that train all the way. And by then you should kind of know naturally what propensities you have, and then it's a case of just application, right? Just kind of show up every day and just see how far you can ride this train.
Yeah, man. Fully. It's like, regardless, just catch that train, don't miss it, and then ride. Be an active participant on that journey.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Should we call it there, bro?
I think so. That sounds like a good place to call it. But before we do, we should announce something about next week, right?
Oh yeah. Should I do it? You want to do it?
I think you need to do this, bro.
I think I'll do this. So we're going to have another guest.
Pow.
A special guest, a very special guest to myself, and it's going to be a fun episode, guys. This is TJ coming on the podcast next week. I've name dropped him here and there, and in different contexts, in different ways, and it's going to be a fun episode. It's going to be a fun episode to have him on and to hear his thoughts on a lot of different stuff, because I know there's things he wants to talk about, and very much looking forward to it. So if you're after opinionated episodes, somebody who's done the reps in so many different ways, and earned the right to speak, that's definitely there with TJ. Tune in next Sunday. We should have the episode up by Monday, hopefully. And man, it'll be a great episode.
Oh, epic, man! That sounds fun. I've been wanting to speak to him for a while.
Yeah,
it's like ever since you mentioned him several times, I was like, who is this TJ, man? I need to speak to this guy. I need to get in his head, see how he operates, and see what I can learn from this guy.
Too right, man. Too right. Oh, it's gonna be a fun episode.
Wicked, man. This could be a good chat. Looking forward to it.
Nice.
Bro, great chatting with you, man. It's
lovely. Fun as always. Fun as always.
Yeah, exactly, man. Making me think on the edges of my intelligence and my wherewithal, and my awareness.
Went everywhere with the conversation today, with kids and sporting endeavors and all sorts. Good chat.
Exactly.
Good chat, man. Good chat.
Exactly, man. People, tell us what you think as well. If you enjoyed the episode as well, please, on the platform you're listening to, just give us a rating, give us a comment, get in touch, tell us what you think. Give us your opinions on the kind of things that we're talking about as well. We really want to know what you guys think as well, so rather than just being potentially an echo chamber. We want to hear some thoughts from you as well, and maybe thoughts about what you'd like us to talk about as well. That's always useful, because makes for better conversation if we can get different ideas going on.
too, right? It helps out the podcast and it helps us to help you guys for sure.
100%. Exactly. Yeah. Got to get the word out there. Let's evolve, achieve, thrive together.
Love it. Ride that train, baby.
Ride that train. All right. Peace.